Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Sian. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos. There are loads of helpful videos on this channel. I have what I read for you in April. Definitely April. I read 4 books in April, which I'm pretty impressed with. I found one of them incredibly hard going, but I'm going to share them with you now. The first book is Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows by Bali Kaur Jaswal. I hope I've pronounced that right. This book is about a girl called Nikki who is growing up in kind of a Sikh community. It's a Sikh community which she's kind of tried to escape. She's a bit more sort of Western. She doesn't particularly feel like she's at home in the Sikh community. She doesn't go to temple. She doesn't kind of do the things that she should do. Her father has died when she was younger, and she has her mum and her sister, and she moved out of home to kind of get away from them. She has a job in a pub and a flat above the pub, and she's just trying to find like her place in the world, and she finds herself drawn back to the Punjabi Sikh community, and it's in a way that you kind of don't expect. So basically she's brought back in to be a teacher, to teach Punjabi women how to write English, which sounds quite you know, normal. And it turns out the people who come to this class are older, kind of the elders of the community, and they're all widows and all female, because it is a female writing group. And it turns out that they don't want to write boring stuff. They don't want to learn their ABC or learn like children. And basically what they want to do is tell their own stories, but they want to tell their own kind of erotic stories. And obviously this is going to be frowned upon in the community, and it's how Nikki balances this, but also the kind of story that comes out through this, the kind of disapproval of the community, and she manages to unearth all kinds of things. And this was such a good book. The erotic stories aren't that erotic, they're just funny really. Like, they're not kind of erotica, it's not a racy novel. They never use any words that are offensive. So for example, they always use a fruit or a vegetable to describe a penis. So it's really quite funny. I absolutely loved this book. I loved the depth of the characters, and I loved how the story flowed, but also the fact that it wasn't just these kind of erotic stories. There's a much deeper story there as well, which was about the Sikh community, about betrayal, about trust, about murder ultimately, and how far a community will go to protect their own. This was a book which was recommended in Reese Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine book club, and I couldn't get it till this month because it wasn't in print in the UK, but I definitely recommend it. It was a really good read, and it was really funny, it was poignant, it was touching, and it was just quite an inspiring read. So definitely recommend that you go out and read that book. The second book I read this month is called Where Rainbows End by Cecilia Ahern, and this was recommended to me by Becky, who is Diary of a Fat Bottom Girl. So go check her out, I'll leave a link to her blog below. And she recommended this because I love Cecilia Ahern, and this was a book I hadn't read. And it follows the story of 2 people who have grown up together, Rosie and Alex. And in fact, before I go into the story, I just want to say I finished this in less than 24 hours, and it's a decently large book, but it's written in text or email exchanges, so it's quite a short, sharp, easy to read book, and I absolutely adored it. It follows the story of 2 people, Rosie and Alex, who have been best friends since they were really young, and they've grown up together, they've shared their hopes, their dreams, everything that they want from life. And when they're 18, Rosie goes to see Alex, and they kiss, and it was kind of a mistake, and they both agree it was a mistake. And then their lives kind of just dodge around each other, and it's just them growing up and the communication they have, and I guess whether girls can actually be friends with boys, that kind of definitely comes into it, and how other people react to that. So Alex gets married, and his wife doesn't like the fact that he is so friendly with Rosie, and I've experienced this with one of my best friends who's a guy, that his wife wasn't happy when we started well, when we carried on our friendship, and our friendship suffered because of that, which was really sad. Anyway, it's a really lovely book, and I don't want to give away too much, but Rosie gets pregnant quite young and brings up her daughter, and her daughter is this wonderful character. She's fearless, she's fearsome, she's just everything you want a young girl to be, and she also has a best friend. And it looks at families and families kind of breaking up and bringing up a child by yourself, and it's just a really, really good light-hearted read, and you end up willing Rosie and Alex just to realise how much they love each other and get together, because that's all you want from this book. You want that to happen, and I'm obviously not going to give away whether it happens or not, but this is an absolutely fantastic read. The third book I read this month is called Fingers in the Sparkle Jar by Chris Packham, and this was the Bookish Mamas book club book, should I say book any more times, for April. And it's a memoir, and it's not the kind of book I would normally read, but I had already ordered it, so I clearly had intentions to read it. I found this book so hard to get into. I think it was mainly because of the language. It's written in a very detailed way, so every paragraph takes, or every sentence kind of fills a paragraph. Let me find one to give you an idea. Okay, here we go. The city twinkled prettily as the snug blanket of night slipped off its glittering bed. Blocks of muted mauve, towers of indigo, and long lines of lavender, soft and fuzzy, lazily drawing some colour from the eastern haze where the paling blue had already beached to an albino blonde and stolen its low-slung stars and washed the freckled face of the moon with milk. That's the opening sentence to one of the chapters, and I just find that a bit too much, if that makes sense, because I ended up kind of having to go back to the beginning of the sentence to work out what it was he was describing. I guess for me, I prefer the writing style to be more direct, so that I can use my imagination to imagine what it looks like, or imagine how something feels or smells, and I think what I struggled with in this book was that everything was described for you. It was incredibly descriptive language used in the telling of the story, and I just found myself getting a bit lost and having to reread to find out what it was that I was reading about. And Chris Packham is clearly obsessed with animals and birds, and obviously there's nothing wrong with that, and that obsession and that love comes through the book, and the love for his kestrel, all this stuff comes through, but you don't really get a sense of who he is, apart from someone who's incredibly passionate about the things that he really likes. And I think I found that really difficult, because I wanted to know more about Chris Packham as opposed to, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm trying to say, but I didn't particularly enjoy reading it. I finished it because I am stubborn and I can't not finish a book, but I found it very hard to do so. The fourth and final book I read this month is called The Awkward Age by Francesca Segal, and this is May's book of the month for the Mumsnet Book Club, and I read it the month before it goes out so that my review goes out for everyone else to read. The book is about two families coming together, so both of them are in a second relationship. The main character, Julia, is a widow, and she has a teenage daughter who is 16 called Gwen, and she has fallen head over heels in love with this guy called James, who is a doctor, and his son Nathan is a couple of years older than Gwen, and the teenagers make life incredibly hard for James and Julia. They don't make it easy for them to be a couple, they don't make it easy for them to have time by themselves. I'm pretty sure that's normal teenage behaviour. I found myself getting really frustrated by the characters in this book, because none of them kind of talk to each other in like a normal, mature way. They don't say what the problems are until they're like massive problems. They don't just sit down and have a chat about things. Julia finds James's son Nathan incredibly hard work, and James finds Julia's daughter Gwen incredibly hard work, and neither of them particularly agree with each other's parenting techniques, which is obviously going to be a huge problem in a relationship. I mean, if you've been in a relationship with someone since you were young and you've had your children together, you can kind of mould your parenting styles. But if you have two families coming together who have completely different parenting styles, it's going to be very hard for those two to kind of merge. And it's made more difficult by the fact that Gwen and Nathan, the two teenagers, start a relationship together. And at this point, I kind of found it quite hard to believe that the parents didn't like step in and say, no, seriously, this is wrong, you can't do this. And I know that teenagers are strong-willed and gonna do pretty much what they want to do, but the fact that none of them could see that it was wrong and it was going to be harmful in the long run. And I'm not going to give away too much because I don't want to ruin the book for you. But I found it really stressful. So they have loads of moments of kind of tension and loads of arguments as a family, and from an outsider looking in, it stresses you out that they're not kind of just dealing with it properly. They're just all skirting around issues and just letting it happen, which is really difficult for me to get my head around. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy the book, but I found it incredibly frustrating, and I actually found reading it a little bit stressful. You totally get drawn into the argument and you find it quite... I'm not someone who likes confrontation, so to be reading about all these confrontations was quite like, ah! But I think what Francesca Segal does really well is write those kind of confrontational moments, because she writes it that well that I was feeling stressed out by it, so it must be incredibly good writing. But I just found that I didn't like the characters, and I found also that I knew what was coming next. I had guessed the storyline, which is also a bit disappointing when you're reading a book. But I wouldn't read it again, but I would say, you know, it's not an awful book and you may well enjoy it, so it's definitely worth a read. And that's it, all the books that I have read in April. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a thumbs up. Please let me know in the comments below what you're reading at the moment. I'm reading a Harlan Coben book, which was given to me by a friend, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm gonna have to go and sit down with a cup of tea and read a bit of it now. So yes, you will see that next month in my next month wrap up. And I'm also gonna film a summer to be read at some point soon. I will see you again soon. Alright, bye!